I was pushed off a cliff by a former friend at his own birthday party. What's up guys, and welcome back to EmKay. Today we're looking through r/AskReddit, a subreddit I've been dying to look through, and today's topic couldn't be any more fitting for that phrasing. People who have survived a murder attempt by dumb luck. What's your story? My husband and I live alone above our place of business. Our alarm company called us at 3 a.m. to say there was a motion detect alert. Just one in a weird place. We assumed it was a mouse, but went to reset/check it out. Husband ended up face to face with a burglar who was on his way out the window he had broken. He ran back inside, called 911, and we heard mad chaos going on in the depths of the building. So much crashing and smashing. Burglar monkey climbed a 10-foot iron gate, bodily smashed through 2 sets of commercial-grade glass doors, and was outside again. Holy cow. My husband was like, yeah, screw this dude. Tore after him and tackled him. Got him on the ground and pinned him. Bear in mind, the whole time I'm narrating to 911 and chasing around in panties and tank top. I was a bit behind my husband in the middle of the street about 15 feet away when a minivan squealed around the corner. It was his girlfriend/getaway driver. I luckily missed it. I was super focused on reading the license plate, which is one of those cutesy fun out of the state ones and therefore hard to read, but she yelled, "Get the hell off him or I'm running your girl over." Then she tried to. The audio and video I had to watch for the trial was horrifying. I had blocked it out nearly completely and really didn't remember how close it was. She guns the engine at me. I throw my hands up in front of my face when I realize what she's doing and scream, and jump out of the way with inches to spare. Oh my goodness. He jumped in and off they went. He bled all over my husband, yikes, and eventually the DNA and the partial plate info nailed them. They're both in prison. Addendum, trials suck. ETA, to make this clear, do not do this. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug and it's best not to fight burglars. We definitely both could have died. It was the 3rd time this guy had broken in and caused X amount of mostly uninsured damage and inventory loss, and that definitely contributed to the whole thing. He wouldn't have stopped doing it. He was a pro and was doing upwards of 3 jobs a night most nights, all over the state, 4 years. My brother has BPD and is totally incapable of controlling his emotions. He saw red and came at me with a steak knife and stabbed me several times in the neck. I guess I was lucky in that most of the stabs glanced off me as I was protecting myself with my arms. He didn't really strike any clean shots where it could have caused me to bleed seriously, but he wasn't really aiming. A few inches to the left and he could have hit a major vein. I was 14 and outside of my garage petting my cat. It was November, so it was already dark by 5 p.m. Someone opened the door behind me without me hearing, grabbed me by my ponytail and started dragging me outside. Whoa. They hit me on my head with a brick and knocked me out. Pulled me halfway around my house when, I'm guessing this is when, they stabbed me on the left side of my stomach. This must have brought me out of my daze because my mom said she heard me scream from inside where she and my brother and sister were in the kitchen. They came out the front door and saw me bleeding out on the sidewalk, called 911, had 12 stitches, double layer, a severe concussion, and whiplash. Didn't eat and hardly slept for a week. They never found them. Well, I don't know if this counts as an attempt or not, but my wife, my kids, and myself went to church one time. We ran into one of my wife's old flings. This guy followed my wife and our daughter around and kept trying to talk to them, so I confronted him about it and told him to back off. As we were leaving, he makes sure to yell across the parking lot, telling my daughter goodbye. My wife forces me into the car and we leave. So I messaged the guy on Facebook to ask him what his problem is, and he tells me that my wife and daughter are his friends and I have no right to tell him who to be friends with. I told him again to back off or I would call the police. Fast forward a week, I worked every other Sunday. I get a call from the pastor saying that he had to call the police on the guy because he was causing drama looking for me. When they arrested him, he had a backpack with him that had a sawed-off shotgun, a meth pipe, and some meth in it. Crazy old meth head man looking to cause some trouble, huh? I was pushed off a cliff by a former friend at his own birthday party. He was 14 and I was like 12. We were on a hike, just the 2 of us, and he took a detour and we reached a steep cliff and he just up and pushed me off. I caught onto a tree root that was jutting out. There was a big tree growing right where I fell. The root grew in a way that part of it was exposed and made a surprisingly good handle. He didn't catch on and simply left me there. I was there for about an hour if I had to guess until someone else was alerted to my presence and managed to get me back up. I still have nightmares about it. I don't know why he did it, but he had been an insane a-hole to me for a long time in retrospect. So, I did not know it was a murder attempt at the time, but looking back now, it was a definite possibility. In middle and high school, my next door neighbors were a boy 1 year younger than me, John, and his younger brother who was 4 years younger than him, Nathan. My own younger brother and I had a similar age gap, and we found ourselves around each other all the time. Now, I'm a female, and the rest of the group was all males, so there were just naturally times when the three of them would hang and I wouldn't be around. One day, my little brother, who was around 9 at the time, comes home with a porno mag and is telling me about the porn videos they are watching as a little unit. Now, guys, I have no idea if this is something that is done in your pre/adolescent circles, but it freaked me the hell out and I told my mom. My mom then went and told their single dad. What I didn't know was their dad was an abusive POS who would beat both of those boys so badly that they couldn't go to school for weeks. No, we didn't call the police, we just filed it away and knew from that point forward to never tattle. I still carry the guilt of telling on John and Nathan with me to this day because it set off a chain of events I would have never anticipated. As we got older, the brothers started acting out more and more. Bullying other kids, vandalism, weird stuff like toying with roadkill. As the level-headed female in the group, I opposed all of these things, and a faction emerged with me and the other neighborhood kids on one side, and John and Nathan on the other just screwing stuff up and causing trouble. One day I had done something to piss off John, and he came at me with a large chef's knife. I didn't have shoes on, so I took off running through the backyard and crossed into the neighbors. John was hot on my tail, trailing me by maybe 4 feet when I fell down. There was some sort of exposed PVC drainage pipe that had been shattered at the top that I didn't see and ran over. My foot was sliced open immediately and I went down screaming. I think it shocked him, my screaming, the sudden change of pace, and the blood. He stopped, laughed at me, then ran home, presumably so he didn't get his butt whipped. After I took care of myself, I told my mom what happened with the knife. She had started dating someone new, and I think this was sort of the feather that broke the camel's back. We moved to another part of town in the same district, about a 10-minute drive from our old house. Around the exact same time we moved in, a new family moved into the house on the other side of John and Nate. Things continued down a bad path for those boys. Over the next year, they got in trouble with school and would randomly show up at our new house and locked out of their own. The year I went off to college, I received a panicked phone call from my mom telling me to look up the local newspaper. John had murdered the girl who had moved into the other house next door to him. It was really grisly too. He chopped her up and stuffed her into a trunk that sat outside in his dad's car all day while a family picnic was happening. He and his little brother got caught trying to throw the trunk into the river from a bridge at night by a cop who happened to be driving by. I just thought to myself that could have been me. Both brothers have been locked up for what has to be about 10 years at this point. They were both tried and convicted as adults. Everyone in our town just wants to see them burn in hell, but honestly the only thing I can think about is how it might have been different if our family reported the abuse from the onset. Maybe their little minds wouldn't have warped from a tender age. Was walking with a few friends to hit the bars after a bottle of tequila as a young, dumb 17-year-old. Through an abandoned dockyard because screw getting a taxi, we're invincible, right? Well, out of nowhere, a dozen men ran out of the darkness near a crumbling abandoned water tower with knives shouting at us. So we all take off naturally. Now we get to the bridge on the other side of the dockyard and my friend gets grabbed and the assailant goes to plant a knife in his back. I grabbed the guy and pulled him into some bushes right by water's edge. My friends continued to run and made off fine. I, however, was cornered and stabbed 4 times, including once in the head. We'll upload pics for proof if this takes up. As I'm lying against the fence and they're deciding who's going to finish me off, one of them starts shouting my name because I knew him from school. He might have been in with the wrong crowd, but he rugby tackled the one that was about to finish me off, pulled down the fence, and sent me running. Still think about him time to time, between the fluoxetine and the PTSD. Mine's not extreme by any chance, but a couple of years ago, my brother and I went to walk the dog at like 11 p.m. We left through the side gate, live on a corner, and right as we exit, I see this weird looking dude at the corner of the footpath walking weirdly towards us. Got bad vibes and told my brother to get the dog and get back inside. This dude is walking kind of side on and hiding something in his hand behind his back. As I'm getting my brother through the gate, the dude says something like, "Oi mate, can I come in? I need a blanket, I'm freezing." I just ignored him and went inside and locked the door. We then get a call from the people who live 2 doors up. The same dude knocked on their door and their 10-year-old son opened it to see the dude holding a frickin' hatchet. Anyway, I'm glad I went with my gut on that one. When I was 2 weeks into my first job as a 16-year-old at a smoothie establishment that should be known to NBA fans, we were robbed. It was late and my coworker's friends had been playing pranks on her all day. So when I saw someone burst through the door, I thought it was just that, until, that is, I had something metal pressed against my back and an arm wrapped around my chest. The robber gave me the whole stereotypical give me all the money spiel and ordered us to go into the back room, kneel down, and face the wall. As I was kneeling and hearing him walking towards us, time seemed to slow down. Thankfully, I had been refilling spilling juices whenever he came in, so the door to the back room was partially blocked by a heavy cart. With whatever substance he was on, he wasn't coordinated enough to get past it to us, so he fled. He was followed by my coworker's husband and caught. When he was caught, they found an industrial-sized pipe wrench wrapped tightly in his fist, so that he could get a stronger grip when swinging. I'm so glad that cart was there. Once a year or so, I would look him up in the parish prison roster to see if he was still in jail. One year, he suddenly wasn't. I later found him named in a lawsuit as having stabbed his cellmate a half dozen times while the guy was asleep. Definitely doesn't seem like the nicest of people. 9 years later, I'm still unpacking this incident in therapy. It's why I don't like walking around cities at night or sitting where I can't see the door. Chilling with the bros, drinking in a park. As we drive off to leave, a car coming our way almost hits us. Driver obviously reacts like WTF, and I guess the other car noticed. They turned around and caught up to us at a stop sign. Other driver asked if we had a problem, and we told them stop driving like a-holes. Then their back window rolls down and two guys in the back draw Glocks with drum magazines. We just kind of froze up at first, but then our driver pulled off hastily. Later found out those guys got arrested for shooting someone else that same day. The thing I love about AskReddit is these stories get so engaging. Like, I'm reading through these and I don't know about you guys, but my mind pictures myself in these situations, how people must be feeling during these kinds of engagements, and you're just like, you never know how you're gonna deal with them, and you get almost, you know, enthralled by especially in these stories where it's blind luck and fate that is keeping them from biting the dust early. It's insane, dude. I was out with a few friends, and with us was a girl that had just broken up with a psychopath. We didn't know he was a psychopath. We found out that night. We were just walking back home from a restaurant. It was about 1 a.m. and the guy came running out of nowhere. I don't know how he knew where and when to meet us. He ran to the girl, lifted her shirt up, and stabbed her in the gut, literally splitting her belly open like a fish, and then ran off. This whole thing happened really quickly, so we were all in shock. The girl was holding her own intestines in her hands, and she was so shocked that she didn't even seem scared, wasn't screaming or anything. She just stood there. We called an ambulance and they managed to somehow put everything back and sew her up. This happened about 3 years ago and she still has pretty serious problems with her digestive tract. Can't eat certain things and that kind of stuff. That image of her just standing in the middle of the pathway holding her own guts will remain stuck in my head forever. The guy got 13 years in jail, by the way. Edit. Now that I think about it, a big part of why they broke up was his constant abuse towards her weight. She wasn't even fat, just a bit on the chubby side. I wouldn't even call that overweight. But he would always tell her that she had a big gut. That was almost an obsession for him. So maybe the fact that he stabbed her in the abdomen is a symbolic action of some sort. I don't even know what was in that guy's brain, and I honestly don't even want to know. That is just not long enough being the jailhouse party hole. For doing something like that, the sheer depravity of that a-hole, just wow. I am just as worried about her life. After he gets out, please help keep her safe, friend. Yeah, we were hoping for at least 25. His father worked in the judicial system some years ago, so that may have something to do with it. We live in a relatively corrupt country. I got jumped by 2 grown men when I was a freshman in college. I was walking back from my friend's house and it was about 30 past midnight. One posed as a homeless man asking for $1 and the other had on a security jacket like he worked for the university's safety patrol. When I passed the homeless guy saying I had nothing to give him, I saw the security guy walking towards me. This is when I felt a rear neck chokehold and the security guy started wailing on me. I had my bag on me, but like I said, I literally had nothing on me. They couldn't take me down to the ground. Surprisingly, I must have had an adrenaline rush. The guy posing as a homeless guy said, "Open a backpack, find anything, let's dip." This lasted about 2 to 3 minutes, but it felt like forever. The whole time I could feel something pointy in my back, but I just like to think that the guy was extremely excited and it wasn't a night. Luckily, it was right outside my friend's house and a couple of them came running out when they heard the commotion. The guys fled immediately when 3 of my friends came sprinting towards them. I still look behind me when I walk home alone. When I was a kid, I was riding my bike home from a friend's house at sunset. I rode past the community pool, which had been closed for a couple months. There was a car in the lot with a guy in it. I didn't think much of it as I continued the trek home. I cut through the local elementary parking lot, which has gates. I get like 20 yards past the gate and I see that car pull up at the bottom, thinking that's odd. Anyhow, he backs out away from the gate. My spidey senses were kind of tingling at this point, and I get up to the school and head towards teacher's parking lot, which is my standard direction. As I'm about to turn the corner, I see headlights from the parking lot. I stop and peek peek around the corner and it's that frickin' guy again. I flip my bike around and start going the long way around the school. He sees me but just gets back in his car and starts driving around the front of the school. I camp in these bushes, heart pounding. He is slowly driving up and down the front of the school, keeping an eye on the teacher's lot. Another car comes down the street and he has to move his dumb car out of their way. As soon as he does, I just blasted up to the street and full tilt flew my bike into some random open garage. So I'm hiding in the garage waiting for him to come around again, but he doesn't. I give it a few minutes, then decide to pop my head out. Still no one. Okay, I'm a few blocks from home, just gotta go for it. Bust out the bike and start hauling A home. Not a half frickin' block later, this dude turns the corner on me. I just veer my bike into some random lawn and run up to the front door. I look at him and he's just in the street staring at me. I grip the front door handle, praying to any and every god these people don't lock their doors. I see his reverse lights flicker and I know he just put it in park. I just rip that door open, run inside and slam it. Two old people just sitting there. I look at them and I'm like, some dude is trying to get me out there. They don't completely believe me because they barely react to what I said, but they don't kick me out or anything either. I'm watching the dude from their window and he's just chilling. Then the grandpa looking dude gets up from his lazy boy and opens the curtain to look for himself. When he does this, the a-hole in the car just leaves. Old guy is like, well, looks like he's gonna leave. I'm like, I'm not leaving for a bit. So I hang out for 10 minutes and no creepy abductor car to be seen. I assume he figured I'd call the cops. Finally, I'm like, I have to get home. This is before cell phones were common for average people. I hop on my bike and I swear it felt like I drove 35 miles per hour the whole way home. I'm exhausted and in complete shock. They basically brush me off. I'm stunned that every adult I interacted with acted like I was crazy. I basically never talked about it again. It was so traumatic to talk about at the time. The image of him in his car while I held the door handle to the random house is permanently seared into my brain. To this day, it's still as crystal clear as if it happened yesterday. Like 18 to 20 years later, I decided to confront my parents as to why they didn't do anything that day. They were like, what are you talking about? I explained it far better than I could have when I was a kid in complete shock. Anyhow, with the current, more expansive explanation, my mother broke down. She started crying at this public restaurant because she saw how serious I was when I was like, how could you ignore what I said that day? As well as talked about how that morphed my stranger danger techniques for better or worse. Thankfully, I was on the verge of puberty and ended up becoming a giant human being, so my actual fears diminished quickly as I could defend myself, until I moved away from that town. However, I looked every day for that goddamned car. Never saw it again. I would fantasize about what I'd like to do if I ever found that guy. Hell, I still do. I have a friend who had a party at his parents' house when he was in high school that a ton of random people went to. He got super drunk during the party and went upstairs to go to sleep, knowing that his friends would watch the party for him. My friend woke up from his nap to a guy from his school sitting on top of him, stabbing him to death. He was stabbed 7 times before it stopped, and he laid there on the bed dying. The only reason he's still alive is because his best friend came upstairs to ask him if it was alright if he made a frozen pizza and found him. Imagine being that guy. Oh, you're at your best friend's party. You're feeling hungry and you're like, I want some Tostinos. You walk up the stairs, you open the door and you're like, hey Frank, is it cool if I make a, oh my god! And it's just, oh. The assailant was put in jail and recently was released, and it scares me to know that a guy who wanted to know what it would feel like to kill someone, said during the trial, is still out there free. That's our justice system, brother. There's no good way to end this reading. There's no positive story, but I hope you were engaged as I was. I was enthralled from start to finish, because that's the end of this edition of r/AskReddit, and if you liked the video any sort of way, if you were engaged like an action flick, leave a like. If you want to see more content from EmKay, subscribe. And as always, I'll be seeing you.